Okay, I struggled with whether I record this episode or not, and I decided to record it. You know that I'm an adjunct professor at SMU, professor of entrepreneurship, and as such, as it turns out, I have a page on a website called Rate My Professors, which I think is generally a brilliant idea to allow students to write their reviews of certain professors in certain classes, certain schools, except of how it's being used. Now, I'm going to share with you some of the reviews that I have received, and I'm going to share 8 insights that I got from those reviews, because I can learn from everything, from anything, and hopefully so can you. So I'm going to share that with you, and get ready for some vulnerability. Mine. I'll share with you the reviews. I'll tell you what the 8 insights are right after this. Welcome to The Trust Show. I'm Yoram Solomon, your host, the author of the Book of Trust, and facilitator of the Trust Habits Workshop. My mission is simple. I want to help you form habits that build your trustworthiness, because the answer to this question will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can I trust you? So let's start. As I said, once again, here is some vulnerability. So first of all, just so that you know, at the time I recorded this episode, I had some like 51, 52 reviews on Rate My Professors. 41 of them gave me 5 stars out of 5. And I'm not going to read those. I'm not going to read the positive ones. 1 gave me 4. 10 gave me 1 out of 5. By the way, you'll notice an interesting thing. Only 1 4 stars, no 2 or 3 stars. So it's either a 5-star or a 1 star. So I'm going to read 3 of the 1-star reviews that said that I'm a bad professor, essentially. I'm going to read them word for word. Now, just so that you know, this is not, I'm not trying to, complain or whine about them and so on. There are insights that can be learned from them. And so that's the context in which I want to share them with you. Okay, here goes. Here's one. An adjunct with self-published book who is more interested in hearing the sound of his own voice than teaching. Dismissive of student input, overinflates his own importance, and make the class all about himself. If you're looking for meaningful engagement or useful insights, you won't find it here. Avoid. That's 1. 2. I'm not trying to be mean, but this guy is a tool. Self-published writer, in parentheses, i.e., yes, like your grandma in her cookbook, close parentheses, has a degree from Capella, open parentheses, yes, also like your grandma's PhD, close parentheses, and his whole lecture is comprised of complete nonsense about his Trust Institute, which is also a made-up thing. A snake oil salesperson at best. That was number 2. Number 3, his class is a waste of time. He teaches only through his own self-published materials. He is ridiculously concerned about his online reputation. He reads these and uses class time to talk about them. And he's an adjunct, yet with the confidence of a Nobel Prize winner. The course is like self-paced internet course, except somehow less useful. Okay, these are the 3. Now, I want to give some facts to clarify some of these things. And once again, I don't want you to consider this being defensive or trying to explain or justify myself or anything. But it's important sometimes when you read things to kind of know what reality is. So some people talked about my self-publishing of books. So let me first establish I'm writing book number 20. The Book of Trust has 550 pages, close to 250,000 words. Writing a book, whether you self-publish it or have a publisher publish it, is not different. You still have to write it. You still have to come with something unique. You still have to have an editor go through it, the entire process of formatting and publishing and artwork if needs to be done. So I'm not sure that every grandma can publish a book, definitely not like the Book of Trust. Again, I know I'm sounding kind of defensive, but that's not the point. I'm just trying. The whole point of self-publishing is not doesn't make a book less worthy, I should say. Now, they said that I'm talking all about myself, or a lot of it is my own material, and sharing stories, personal stories, and firsthand experience, especially since I have them in the context of what I'm teaching, is important. You can teach completely academically. And by the way, there was another review somewhere that I didn't read here that said that I'm very academic. So, it's kind of, it doesn't reconcile with saying that I'm sharing stories. To me, sharing personal stories, having firsthand experience enhances learning rather than I'm going to only send you to peer-reviewed articles, research articles by pure academics, and that's what you're going to learn. I'm going to share stories, my own personal stories. Somebody said that the Trust Institute is a made-up thing. It's not. I mean, it's a company that existed since 2005, so it's about to turn 20. There is a lot of research going into what I've done and what I am doing. The next one is that I have a PhD from Capella, which one student refers to it as like your grandma's PhD. I don't know where your grandma's PhD is from, but I'll tell you that since I already had a master's, I got waiver for 12 classes, 12 courses. It still took 3.5 years to complete the PhD, 2 years spent on a dissertation, 4 weeks on a comprehensive exam. Capella University is, it's funny that today in 2024, somebody looks at online university as something that's less than let's call it a normal university for several reasons. One of them, you may not remember 2020 anymore, but that's how every university taught. It was online. Capella was one of the first universities to get how to do online. The professors there are also professors from other places, other universities. One of the advantages of being online is that you get professors from North Carolina and California and Florida and New York and anywhere in the country. The university, by the way, is accredited by regional accreditation agencies that are accredited by the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education. So, oh, by the way, the classes that I teach now at SMU, I teach classes in person and I teach classes online. SMU teaches online. Harvard teaches online. By the way, SMU is ranked number 25 nationally in their MBA program. So saying that an online degree is like your grandma's PhD is really, I don't know. It's not a fact, right? It's an opinion, and it's not an appropriate opinion. And finally, do I talk about some of my successes? I also talk about some of my failures, by the way. This is how I share stories. Not all of my stories are success. Some of them are failures. And I remember a friend of mine said something to me once that stuck in my head. And as it turns out, there is a book by this name, and it's called It's Not Bragging If It's True. I was part of some of the things that I mentioned in class, and it's true. So it's not really bragging. Anyway, once again, I wanted to clarify some of the things that were mentioned and put fact against statements of opinions, because I think that it's important that we look at facts. I know that to some extent it sounded defensive. That was not my goal. My goal was really to make sure that you understand what reality is versus what the facts, what the opinions are. As far as wanting to, I love to hear my own voice. I'm not sure what that means. How can somebody know that I like hearing my own voice instead of teaching? And oh, by the way, how can you teach without using your voice? So that's not very clear to me. Anyway, once again, I'm not saying that as being defensive. I'm saying that so that we can put those comments somehow in perspective. But that was not what this episode is about. I want to share 8 insights that I got from those specific reviews. So let's start with insight number 1, and that is anonymous reviews. Do we trust anonymous review, and do people trust the anonymity of a platform like Rate My Professors and others to provide their own reviews? Well, obviously, it kind of looks like the students trust the anonymity of Rate My Professors enough to put things that I'm pretty sure they would not want to be tracked back to them. So anonymity gives you a certain level of trust. Now, I'll talk later about whether that should be the way to provide reviews and whether you can rely on reviews when the reviewer is anonymous. But I have to admit that some of those reviews, oddly enough, were listed under class numbers that I never taught, which means that maybe even the students provided this review or those reviews, and I don't know if all of them were provided by the same student or different students, because they were listed under incorrect class numbers, classes that I never taught and probably never will, and I frankly don't even know what they are. But I think the first insight is that on one hand, for you to provide, and I'm getting away from students and in general, for you to provide a review, a real pointed review, you may have to trust the anonymity of the platform and the fact that your review is going to stay anonymous, because otherwise you're just going to tell people what they want to hear, what you think they want to hear, rather than maybe what they need to hear. The flip side of it is, do you trust reviews that come in anonymously with people who are not willing to sign their name to their review? So that's insight number 1, the relationship between trust and anonymity of a review platform. Insight number 2 really goes to our hiding behind anonymity instead of having the ability to speak directly and provide feedback directly. And that once again talks to, for some people, they're just too shy and too introverted to be able to feel comfortable enough to speak, to provide their feedback directly to the person to try and help them improve. And by the way, maybe when you do that, maybe your goal is not to provide improvement. Maybe it's something else. And that goes back into trust, because your ability to give the feedback that the other person needs to hear depends on whether you trust them. And I would have to admit that when I look at reviews like that, I would have to assume that those are students that did not trust me enough to provide me directly with feedback that they had on my class. So instead, they do that anonymously. And again, that goes back into the trust, this time the trust that they have or don't have, in this case, in me. Insight number 3 goes back to one of the unique things about my approach to trust, and that is the relativity of trust. Because when I look at the overall reviews and I see 41 positive reviews, 1 4-star review, and 10 1-star reviews, you have to ask yourself, how come? How come students sit in the same classroom and one of them thinks, I'm going to give him a 5, I really like his classes, and another says, nope, this is a 1. This is a class that nobody should take in their right mind. I should make sure that nobody else takes this class. Well, trust is relative. We are different people. We're different in where we were born. We're different in our DNA. We're different in where and how we grew up and where we live and where we work. We're different in a lot of things. And because of that, the same behavior that could cause one person to trust you could cause another person to distrust you. The same thing that I'm doing in the classroom, and it's not necessarily just trust, the same things that I'm doing in the classroom would cause one student to give me a 5, another student to give me a 1, one student to really like it, And I have a lot of students that keep calling me even after the class is over and they already got their grades. They don't need anything from me. There's nothing that I can do that would affect their futures or anything. They still reach out to me to get advice. I have students that were my students years ago that still reach out to me. So you have to assume that these students really like what I do in the classroom, but obviously there are other students that are not. And that's an important point because it really comes down to, can you satisfy everyone? And the answer obviously is no. You cannot satisfy everyone. And as I said, the same behavior that would cause one person to trust you could cause another person to distrust you. The same behavior that would cause one person to like you could cause another person to dislike you. You're not going to be liked by everyone. You're not going to be trusted by everyone. So insight number 3 is really that it's relative. Insight number 4 is interesting from a statistical standpoint, and that is that the results that I have there are very extreme. I looked at some of the other professors and I see, pretty well-balanced spread of anything between 5 stars to 1 stars. There are 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, and 5. But when I looked at mine and I see 41 positive reviews, 1 4-star reviews, 10 1-star review, nothing at 2, nothing at 3, I have to ask myself, why? Why is that so different? Why are the results so extreme? And I think that when your style is very unique, when your style is very distinct, when you're very opinionated and you're very passionate about what you do, you tend to polarize the reactions that people would have to you. If you're kind of plain vanilla, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to be plain vanilla, if you're kind of aiming to the middle, then you're going to have people that like you a little more, people who like you a little less. But when you are more distinct, more unique in your style, more opinionated, more passionate, you tend to polarize those reviews a lot more. And so that is my insight number 4, that the more distinct you are, the more you're going to polarize the results, the reviews you get. The 5th insight is, do you like getting negative feedback? Do you benefit from negative feedback? So first of all, let me clarify. When I say negative feedback, I don't mean feedback given in a negative way. And frankly, what we're looking at here is feedback giving in a negative way. It's not feedback about negative things that I do that would help me improve them. It's feedback given in a negative way. There's nothing that I can do about my degree from Capella. There's nothing I can do about my books being self-published. And there's nothing that I can do about using personal stories, because I believe that using personal stories help education. So, but there's negative feedback. So feedback about negative things. And here's my belief, okay? And quote me on that. Positive feedback makes you feel better. Negative feedback makes you better. So I read those reviews. And I read those reviews not because I'm obsessed with my reviews. I'm not obsessed with getting positive reviews. I read the negative reviews more than I read the positive reviews because I'm trying to learn from it. And in order to learn from it, you need to know how to provide that feedback, or the reviewers need to know how to provide the feedback. I will learn from feedback that's given in a constructive way. I'm not looking for do that, do this, or advice on how to do it, but I'm looking for things that are more focused on the issues. What are the things that I can improve? Because then I can do something about it. I read feedback in some of the instructor reviews, the course reviews that are done within the university. And it was something that said, he runs really long. My classes start at 6:30 p.m. and they end at 9:45, which, most people are pretty tired. And sometimes I get so excited that I forget to give a break. Well, good to know. I added a break. I learned from that review, from that feedback that I got. So, the next question is, what am I going to do about the reviews that I got here? And the problem is nothing, because those reviews that I described to you here gave me nothing concrete that I can work on. So I can. I want to do something. I want to be able to reduce negative feedback, although I do realize that having the unique and distinct style does polarize the results that I get, the reviews that I get. And I know that I'm not going to satisfy everyone. But the negative reviews really don't give me anything that I can work on. In some cases, if you fix some of the things that caused you to get the negative review, you might actually hurt the positive reviews, but that's not in all cases. So I can't work on something when I don't know what the problem is, when the reviewer is not specific about the problem. Which leads to insight number 6, and that is, when you provide review, you need to attack the things that a person does and not the person himself or herself. So, when I read that somebody says that I'm a tool, this guy is a tool, okay, what does that mean? What can I do about it? Not be a tool? What does being a tool means? His lecture is comprised of complete nonsense. Can you be a little more specific? And then especially my most favorite one is a snake oil salesman at best. I'm not going to tell you that I'm not hurt by this. I am, but I separate myself from it. So if the purpose of giving the review and calling me a snake oil salesman at best, if the purpose was to hurt me, I don't want you to think that it did. It did, but very little. You pray, if that was your goal, if you're listening to this and that was your goal, then you didn't achieve it. I'm not hurt, not to change something. But once again, and this goes back to insight number 5, it didn't help me fix anything. Calling me a snake oil salesman at best is a personal characterization. I should say character assassination. But it's not specific to something that I do that I can improve, which tells me that the purpose of writing this review was not to help me improve anything, but to hurt my feelings. So once again, you didn't achieve that. And when you want to provide feedback, you need to focus on the things that person is doing that you don't like, that you think could be better, even without telling how they could be better. Just say, this is what I don't like. But when you say, I don't like the person, you're not helping in any way to improve anything, to learn from it. Insight number 7, I have to assume, I want to assume that the purpose of the review was not to hurt my feelings, was not so I can read it and I'm going to feel bad, because that's just mean. But I have to assume that the purpose of writing that review is for other students to read it and know to avoid my class. If they're like you, know that this is a class that you need to avoid, which is a noble cause. Of course, it would help if you didn't write the same review 3-4 times, assuming that others, and write it under incorrect class numbers so that the platform would let you input multiple ones. But do you think that other students really trust that review? Because you think that other students don't realize that reviews like this are personal. They're attacking a person. They're not telling you why the class is bad. And when another student considers a class and reads this kind of review, do they trust that review? Do they consider this review to be an objective, critical review? Or they think that this is just a disgruntled student? And by the way, whatever disgruntled student, the grades I give in this class are pretty high, which is kind of funny because one of the reviews said he's an easy grader. It's a negative review. It says, avoid this class, but by the way, he's an easy grader. So it's not about grades. So it's somebody that really didn't like me in class. And that's fine. That's fine. The thing is, if this is what you focus on in the review, do you think other students trust it? So a review that's personal and not topical, doesn't attack the issue, attacks the person. Not only that, it does not help the person improve because there's nothing concrete, there's nothing specific about what I do, but it doesn't even help other students avoid this class because they read it and they see it as being personal or a personal attack rather than something specific. Insight number 8 is that what I think we're experiencing here is a lack of empathy. And I'll explain. First of all, I want to quote, there's a study that was done in 2015 using the World Value Survey database and some other sources. And what they found was that overall, there is a decline, an increase in the level of individuality, both in practices and values. And to put it in simple words, it's we believe that the world revolves around us more than before. Over a period of 51 years in 78 countries, that number showed an increase of 12% in the belief that the world revolves around me. And you may think 12% is not a lot for 51 years, but it's 60 to 69% in English-speaking countries, and that's us. So we believe that the world revolves around us, so it's all about us. And we have a decline in empathy. And I think that's one of the worst things that is happening to our society. And I do think that it starts at the earlier ages. What do I mean by lack of empathy and how does it show here? The lack of empathy is in the misunderstanding or not caring of the person providing a review like this, not caring about what it makes the professor, the person being reviewed, feel, and what it makes other people who rely or want to rely on your reviews, what does it make them feel? Because if you're providing it the way you did, and you hurt somebody's feelings, the question is, did you want to hurt their feelings? Did they hurt your feelings? And even if they did, is the right thing is let's hit back, or is the right thing saying you hurt my feelings? I want you to know that. And if your intention is to have other students rely on your reviews, shouldn't you read it in a way that would make them feel that the review is a lot more objective than it is subjective and a personal attack? So we have an overall decline in empathy that shows through these reviews. And that's something that worries me, and it worries me especially with the next generation. Okay, this is what I have for you today. Those are the 8 insights. Let me just summarize what the 8 insights are. 1 is the relationship between trust and anonymity in platforms like this to provide reviews. 2 is the inability to speak directly and provide the feedback directly, hiding behind anonymity. 3 is the relativity of liking or trust. Some people would like you for the same behavior, others will not for the same behavior. 4 is that the more distinct and unique your style is, the more passionate, the more opinionated, the more emotional it is, the more you're going to polarize how you get reviews. Number 5 is that sometimes the best feedback is negative feedback, but negative feedback is feedback about negative things that you need to improve rather than feedback delivered in a negative way. Insight number 6 is that you need to attack the things and not the person. Be objective, be topical, be specific. Number 7 is because you made it personal and not objective and specific, if you expected other people to trust it, they're not going to, because you come across as, it's a personal attack. And number 8 is the overall lack of empathy that we're seeing, the decline in empathy that really, really worries me. Now, this is the end of this episode. I'm not blaming the students who wrote this. And I don't care who it is, and I'm not trying to find who it is. But looking at 10 reviews that were like that, each one of them was a personal attack rather than a specific topical, this is an issue. I don't think that I can do anything about it. I don't think that I can change anything because nobody pointed out something specific. What? The fact that I got my PhD from Capella is a bad thing? I can't do anything about it, and I don't think it's a bad thing. The fact that I self-published my 19 books and soon my 20th book, I don't feel that that's a bad thing, and there's nothing I'm going to change. All it does is it makes me feel sad that this is our future. That's it for today. As I said, I know that to some extent I did come across as being defensive and taking it personally, but there are 8 insights here, and I hope that you benefited from it. I hope that this made you think a little differently about trust and about things or about reviews here. May trust be with you. This was The Trust Show. What would you like to know about trust and trustworthiness? Let me know and I'll answer it in a future episode. I would love to hear from you. Email me at yoram@thetrustshow.com. If you like this episode, subscribe to the show so you will automatically get notified when I release a new episode. Rate it. Write a review for this podcast because those ratings help not only you, but also others looking for podcasts just like this. If you're looking for more resources to learn about how to build trust, be trusted, or know who to trust, look up my workshops, online courses, books, or go to my website, trusthabits.com. And remember that the answer to these 2 questions will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can I trust you? And can you trust me? Thank you for listening or watching The Trust Show.